The normal idea of karma and reincarnation is that first of all, time is the ultimate reality of our experience. Our entire experience takes place in time. The universe, in time and space. The universe appears in time and space. The world appears in the universe. And then, at some stage, we are born as a body into the world. In that body there is a brain. In that brain there is a mind. And in that mind there is consciousness. That's the normal view of things. And therefore, as a concession to that view of things, the teaching says, depending on your thoughts and activities, when you die, all that happens is that your body dies, and all the store of unspent energies in your mind will roam around. They don't quite say where, but because nobody's ever seen that kind of store of unspent energies floating around in time or space. Okay, we'll call them that's it. Let's make up a place called Bardos. That's fine. So that's a nice kind of fits. So that then these unspent energies float around in the Bardos for a while, and then at some stage, they, in order to spend themselves, they need a body to release these energies, so they take another body. Now, if they're lucky, if they've behaved well and had nice thoughts, they get reincarnated in California. If they're not so lucky, it's... Shropshire are for the few elite who have behaved so impeccably well that and then, okay, it's bad luck, they spend their time in Shropshire, they do their best to improve themselves, they have nice thoughts and do nice deeds, they die, their store of unspent energies is not quite as large as it was, and it has been to a certain extent purified of all the nasty bits, so there's more chance next time they'll get born, maybe not in California, but nearby Sedona or somewhere like that. Maui or so. And then with this approach, with this view, it's possible to explain things like why the concentration camps happened. It's easy. The guys that did the perpetrating were just the really bad guys. And actually, the poor guys that were suffering were also the really bad ones. They deserved to suffer. So,
or they could be purifying their karma.
Or they were given this gift of suffering in order to purify this unspent. There are various interpretations of it. And although when we hear these interpretations, it's not very satisfying. In order, all we could do, in order to, how could that be satisfying? You just have to believe it. You just have to think, okay, my master told me it was like that. Therefore, it's like that. We don't know it's like that. It's not our experience. So it's only the relief we get from adopting that attitude is only as strong as our belief that it is true. But our beliefs are so fickle. what happens if your master dies and you find another master?
Mm-hmm.
And he says, no, it's not true. What are you going to do then? Are you going to cling on to your old belief in order to get some relief from the pain of this suffering?
Yeah.
It doesn't work. As you know, at best it's a belief that we cling to.
Right.
But actually, the more deeply we go into our experience, the less possible it is for us to cling to any belief.
Mm-hmm. So then what we're left with is a mystery. I mean, it's to me, it seems that there's such a diversity of experience.
Hang on, before we get to the mystery, we can just go a little bit closer to our experience. Because I'm trying to answer your question
Sure.
about cause and effect and karma, and let's now drop this whole model of karma and reincarnation on the understanding that it is based on a presumption.
Mm-hmm.
It is a concession to the belief that I, the body, was born into the world and the world exists in time and space. It's a theory of reincarnation that is in line with that belief.
I believe
Now,
that.
Here, we don't have that view of experience. Our experience is not first there is time and space, then there is a universe, then there is a world, then there is a body, then there is a mind. Then there is a brain, then there is a mind, and then there is consciousness. That is not our experience.
Mm-hmm.
Our experience is first there is consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
And consciousness, if we can talk about it, imagine it as a space like consciousness. Consciousness, like time and space in the previous model, is the biggest element of experience.
Mm-hmm.
And inside consciousness is mind. And inside the mind is matter. In other words, the body and the world from this point of view, and this point of view is just the point of view of experience.
Mm-hmm.
It's not theory. It's closer to it's not a perfect model, but it's a model that is much closer to our experience.
Mm-hmm.
First there is consciousness. Consciousness modulates. It is the substance of consciousness itself that takes the shape of mind. And I mean mind in the broadest sense of the term, thinking, sensing, and perceiving. And it is only thought, in the form of thinking, that conceptualizes separate objects made out of stuff called matter. So from this point of view, objects, the world, the body, are the smallest element of experience. Mind is bigger than the world, and consciousness is bigger than mind. So now look at your point of view, look at your life, your experience from that point of view. First there is consciousness. And think of it in terms of the three states of deep sleep, dreaming, and waking. Remember, we had these three elements: consciousness, mind, matter. In the conventional point of view, it's matter, mind, consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
Now, from the conventional point of view, the point of view that says there is matter, mind, consciousness, the waking state is considered to be the most real state.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? And the waking state corresponds to matter, because the waking state is made out of stuff called objects. So the biggest state, the primary state, is the waking state. When we fall asleep, we go out of the waking state and we lose contact with matter. It's just made out of mind. And in deep sleep, which is considered to be from the conventional point of view, the most unreal of all our experiences, the waking state is the most real.
Mm-hmm.
Dreams is pretty unreal, and deep sleep is completely unreal. There's nothing there.
Mm-hmm.
This corresponds to this tiny little spark of consciousness in the middle of the mind. Now, from the point of view of our experience, it's the other way round. Consciousness is the biggest world. inside that mind takes place, inside that the body and the world take place. So consciousness corresponds to deep sleep.
Mm-hmm.
Yes?
Yes.
Deep sleep is the most real state. Yeah? Because it's just pure consciousness. Now, from this point of view, deep sleep doesn't come to an end when the dream state begins. It's that deep sleep itself, pure consciousness, vibrates within itself and takes the shape of mind and appears as the dream state. Yes, so pure consciousness takes the shape of mind, thinking, sensing and perceiving. That is just mind. That corresponds to the dream state, which takes place in deep sleep, not after deep sleep. You haven't gone from one state to another state. You have remained pure consciousness. Pure consciousness by itself corresponds to deep sleep. Consciousness starts vibrating within itself. It begins to take form, thinking, sensing and perceiving, and appears as the dream. And then in the form of thought, it conceptualizes separate objects. And those separate objects become the waking state. Mm-hmm. So from that point of view, the waking state is the most unreal state. In other words, the state in which we think there are separate objects made out of matter, known by a separate subject, made out of stuff called mind, is the least real state. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And this is why it says in the Bhagavad Gita, what for the sage, for the sage, the waking state is, I'm paraphrasing now, what is the waking state for the ignorant is sleep for the sage. Mm. And what is sleep for the ignorant is waking or daytime for the sage. Mm-hmm. The sage means pure consciousness. So, with this completely new model of our experience, which is simply a model that is based on what we actually experience, now think of, again, of cause and effect.
Yeah, well, cause and effect.
Think of how the residues that are left in the mind materialize in the form of the body and the world. Mm-hmm. And this is actually what happens in a dream state. When you fall asleep at night, your body and your world disappear, but there is a residue that is left over, that is just made out of pure mind, and in your dream you create a new body and a new world. So for instance, if during the waking state you were very fearful, let's say you had a very fearful disposition, when you fall asleep, you find yourself reborn as a new person in a new world. And the fear that you felt inside of yourself in the waking state now manifests in your environment outside of you. So you find yourself as a new body, a brand new body that you get in the dream state, and you find that you are in a war zone and you're terrified.
A nightmare.
But the fear that you felt on the inside in the waking state has materialized as your environment in the dream state, and you then identify with a body. You think, I, this body, am experiencing this fearful environment. But it's actually the fear that was inside you in the waking state that has manifested as a threatening situation in your environment. And this is I think, not a perfect model of reincarnation, but a much better one. One that is much closer. That we go from the waking state, or we seem to go from the waking state. What was inside us in the waking state becomes our environment in the dream state.
Right.
And then we seem to pass out of the dream state into deep sleep, where we get some relief But then the dream state starts again, we get a new body in a new world, and then we come back to the waking state. Now, why couldn't exactly the same thing happen at death? We don't die out of this body and hover around in a bardo and then get reborn in London or Shropshire or wherever it is. Why couldn't it be that we actually stay where we always are, where we have always been, pure consciousness? That we take the shape of mind, thought abstracts a body and a world. When that body and world dies, when thought, in other words, when thought ceases to abstract a body and a world, that's the death of the body, mind continues. We don't go anywhere because we are this dimensionless consciousness in which this mind is taking place and in which the body and the world previously took place. Now the body has disappeared with its world, but mind continues. That's what the Tibetans call the bardo. And then at some stage thought conceptualizes and a new body and a new world from this pure mind experiences, and then we find ourselves in another world. But that world takes place it's always been in us. The whole thing has happened in us.
Yeah.
I don't know how clear a description that is. That's kind of
it's
hard to explain.
It's an alternative model that challenges me.
Sorry?
It's an alternative model that I've never
Well, it's an alternative model. It's not a perfect model. No models are perfect, but it's one that is based on our experience and is consistent with our experience. At least it's consistent with our experience now. And also, we are using a hint. And the hint is the 3 states. And do you think it's just a coincidence that there happen to be 3 states? A waking state made out of objects. A waking state consisting of objects made out of matter. A dream state consisting of mind. And deep sleep consisting of just being, just consciousness. Is that just a coincidence? Matter, mind, consciousness. We rehearse this every single day of our lives. There's such a clue there as to the nature of reality. It's a clue that we rehearse this death process every single day.
Well, what I see you're doing is you're making deep sleep central and the waking state.
Yes, exactly. I'm saying that deep sleep is the most real experience, and the waking state, it's not that the waking state is unreal. All experience is equally real, but it's the way thought conceptualizes the waking state to consist of objects made out of matter moving around in time and space. That is the least real.
Right.
So I'm completely turning experience upside down and basing it on our experience, which is that consciousness is primary.
Right. So
mind is secondary, matter is tertiary. The conventional view is that matter is primary, mind is a byproduct of matter, secondary, and consciousness is a byproduct of mind, tertiary.
So what you could say is that the belief in karma may actually create that particular reality, but that it's not a particularly wise belief to have.
What I'm saying is that the theory of karma is not completely wrong. There's some intelligence to the karma, but the way it is presented normally makes a concession to the conventional dualistic point of view that matter is the biggest element of experience, then mind, then consciousness. So there is some truth at a relative level to karma, but the conventional way of thinking of it is simplistic and is dependent upon this very childish view we have of experience. If you turn the whole thing upside down and start with consciousness, inside which is the mind, inside which is matter, you can still think in terms of cause and effect. But it makes much more sense, it's much closer to our experience, and then you go to the hint of the 3 states of waking, dream, and you understand, I don't go out of the waking state into the dream state, and then out of the dream state into deep sleep. I am always in deep sleep, which is not a state, and therefore we have to say it is actually beyond deep sleep, teoria, because it is no longer, it's not a state. But let's leave that for the moment. It's making pure consciousness the biggest element, which is represented by deep sleep. Mind takes place in consciousness. Matter takes place in mind.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate the effort you put into your answer.
It's not something that is easy to describe, and it's a little challenging to.
Yes, well, I appreciate you taking up the challenge.